Good afternoon, and thank you again for joining me. Attorney Peter Angelis. I practice law in the state of Michigan and the state of Ohio. Today I wanted to discuss a little bit about best practices when you're faced with a large loss or catastrophic casualty. I recently had two very important cases that I handled, both motorcycle cases. The first case was a fatality case, and the second case was a motorcycle case involving a very serious injury. Both cases had a large insurance policy involved, providing up to $2 million in coverage. Let's talk about the most recent case. Within 48 hours of this accident happening, I was hired by the insurance company to go out and conduct what they called a documentation of evidence. What we did immediately is retained a crash reconstructionist. We made the scene of the accident, and we were able to develop a lot of physical evidence at the scene of the accident, which will undoubtedly come in handy if the case ever goes into litigation. And that's the point that I wanted to emphasize. When you are faced with a very large loss claim that has significant exposure, either because of the amount of insurance coverage available or because of the significance of the injuries, it really behooves the investigator or insurance company adjuster to go out and do a documentation of evidence investigation. That would involve hiring counsel. Number one, hire a good attorney that handles these type of casualty claims. In that way, all of the investigation that is developed is privileged. It becomes attorney work product privilege, and there might be attorney client privilege that attaches to the information that's developed as part of this investigation. If you go and do the investigation on your own as an independent adjuster or somebody that's not an attorney, it's possible that during legal proceedings later on that you may be compelled to produce this information. And that's not the case if you conduct the investigation through the assistance of your counsel. So what we did after being contacted by the insurance company is we had the scene of the accident. We were also able to quickly secure all of the video camera from the stores that caught this motorcyclist just before the impact. We had an independent investigator go out and secure all of the store surveillance video that was provided to our investigator. We also met with our insured driver. He was a truck driver. We were able to download all of the electronic data from his truck. And then what we did was conduct a speed analysis test. Using the video that we obtained, we know that that motorcycle was in the video for a certain number of seconds. We were able to develop reference points of where the motorcycle was. And then our investigator went through the same area at a known speed of 50 miles per hour. He did it 3 times in the center lane, the left center lane, and the right curb lane at 50 miles an hour. And he was able to determine how many frames he appeared going the posted speed limit versus how many frames that the motorcyclist was going over the same distance. And it's at that point basically a mathematical calculation. And we were able to determine that this motorcyclist was going 114.5 miles per hour in a 50 mile an hour zone. We were able to download the data from the truck, who is insured by our client. The truck had no sudden emergency, no sudden braking. The truck was not speeding. We interviewed the driver. We obtained all of the driver's information. We canvassed the area for eyewitnesses. And now, after probably it's only been about 30-45 days, we have a complete documentation of evidence report in the file. And that will really come in handy if the attorney decides to file this case and litigate it. Right now, we just have received a notice of claim. Similarly, in the other case that I had involving the motorcyclist who was killed as a result of the accident, we were fortunate enough to be able to secure nearby surveillance video showing that motorcyclist speeding across a certain known distance. And in that case, our expert did the same type of analysis and was able to determine that that motorcyclist as well was speeding. In that case was resolved, but it was resolved for less than the policy limits, largely in part because of the investigation that was completed right at the beginning of the case. We were able to determine that there was some fault on the part of our insured driver, but there was also some fault on the part of the motorcyclist. So basically, when you're involved with a large loss, a vehicular loss, a motor negligence claim, there's certain physical evidence and there's certain electronic data and there's certain other information that can be identified and obtained right after the accident occurs. Things like the debris pattern at these motorcycle accident scenes, the skid marks on the roadways, the electronic data on the involved vehicles. All of that stuff is going to vanish after a certain period of time. The electronic data gets overwritten, the tread marks or the tire marks on the roadway, of course, those get lost over time. The debris pattern also gets cleaned up after a period of time. There is physical evidence at the scene which would actually show gouge marks on the cement that will show the point of impact. There's also paint transfers that occur between the involved vehicles that a well-qualified crash reconstructionist can make heads or tails out of. There are witness statements that can be obtained right at the beginning of a case because, as you know, witnesses, their memories tend to fade over time. Witnesses might disappear. Many of these accidents happen on interstate highways, so the witnesses are from out of state or from long distances. So if you can have, through your counsel again, have an independent adjuster or an investigator contact eyewitnesses to an accident and obtain statements from them, either recorded or written statements, that will go a long ways towards assisting your counsel in presenting the defense of your case should the matter go to trial. So I hope all of this is informative. At least it gives you something to think about. Again, I am attorney Peter Angelis from Detroit, Michigan, from the law firm of Alexander & Angelis. Thank you.